Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Hangout today, entitled Implementing the Sustainable Development Goals in Africa. I'm delighted to welcome members from the Cameroon team today, who will give us their thoughts about the Sustainable Development Goals and the issues they face in Cameroon, and and how networking as a team in Cameroon and um, throughout the continent with support from continental organisations, how that might overcome the issues they face. So if I could first of all introduce you to Tanda and let Tanda introduce himself to you. Please go ahead, Tanda.
Good afternoon, Paul, and good afternoon to the rest of the participants. I'm sure we are ready to go. My name is Tanda Godwin from Cameroon. I am the Executive Director for the Environmental Protection and Development Association, a youth-led based organization working to improve the living conditions of rural people in Cameroon. I am actually a member of the Cameroon team for the implementation of sustainable development goals in rural Africa. And I'm here to talk a little bit about the situation in Cameroon with regards to the implementation of sustainable development goals in rural Cameroon. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanda. We're hoping that 3 or 4 of the members of the Cameroon team will join us over the course of the next hour. As usual, we are having 1 or 2 internet connections, but I'm delighted that Tanda is here with us, and also Francis Maberry from Uganda will be joining us and making comments throughout. Francis, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Paul, and I'm happy to join this hangout. My name is Francis Maberi. I'm more popular for having worked with Action 2015, co-chairing the process on a global level and paying particular attention to Africa. But I'm based at African Monitor, and I'm coordinating the Uganda chapter. I'm also part of the Unite international team, and I'm always happy to get engaged in this discussion and provide my input.
Thank you, Francis, for that. Now let us try and find out what the issues are in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals in Cameroon. Tanda, what are your experiences so far about the SDGs and the rural communities, and just generally in Cameroon about do people actually know what the SDGs are about, and what sort of issues are you generally finding?
Yeah, that's a good question, Paul. I think the situation in Cameroon with regards to knowledge of the Sustainable Development Goals it's quite very I would rather say it's really low. The rural community do not understand or are not very much aware of what the Sustainable Development Goals are, and if we have to retrospect, the Millennium Development Goals came and went by, with most of these rural communities not understanding what the international community or the national the nation is actually engaged in. So it's something we as youths of Cameroon we are looking at. And at the beginning, last year when the Sustainable Development Goals were endorsed, we were already identifying key gaps with regards to the rural community. First of all, having a knowledge or becoming aware of what these goals are, and we were looking at how we can try to reach out to them in the different in the different dialects or in the different ethnic languages, because these goals are only in French and in English probably, but then these communities, even if they are told in English, they will not still understand. So there is a great challenge for, first of all, lack of knowledge, and then, and secondly, of really, appreciating and appropriating these goals in their own way.
Oh, okay, thank you, Tanda. And you say there are language issues. I mean, also talking about the youth who understand English and French fairly well. Are they aware of the SDGs and their role in achieving them?
Um, well, we talk about the youth. I think we also include very young people, children, and it is also in line with what I have just mentioned, especially children in the rural communities. Even those that are in the cities will probably have heard about the sustainable development goals, but understanding what are they probably will need certain activities that will, you know conscientize them fully in these development goals, probably creating more awareness and engaging them to fully understanding and knowing how useful these development goals can be to them and their lives. So, in a nutshell, um, youths in the urban communities can understand or are also aware of the sustainable development goals in a little bit, because they can understand French, or they can also understand English. These are the two national languages well spoken in Cameroon. But of course, we are looking at the communities. First of all, there are other issues. There are barriers to why rural communities are not the development. And years of our discussion, the rural communities are completely unaware of these development goals, and the urban community, by virtue of the fact that there is available information on TV, on internet, social media, they could be a little bit aware. But if you walk into a classroom in an urban environment, for example, Douala, Yaoundé, Limbe, and ask a young student or a young people if they know of the development goals, I think the answer will out of 100%, you will find just like 40% saying, okay, maybe we have heard about it, we know about them, and so on and so forth. It's a real challenge.
Okay, thanks, Tanda. Do you think that there should be a concerted effort by the education authorities to enshrine the Sustainable Development Goals as part of the curriculum in schools?
Yes, I will say yes, in the sense that if we look at sustainable the implementation of sustainable development goals to be uh, to be something that has to involve everybody, and that the youths are really so much involved, as per the discussions on the international milieu platform, like Ban Ki-moon mentioned in most of his speeches, that the youths are really at the forefront of the implementation of sustainable development goals, because it's something that has to do with the future, It is something that has to do with the generations to come. So I believe that if the government of Cameroon, if the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education and Higher Education can put this as a curriculum, enshrine it in the curriculum of Cameroon, I think it will go a long way involving and engaging the youth in most of the activities that will be happening around.
Okay, thanks, Tanda. Just to let you know that you are cutting in and out a little bit, but generally we can hear you quite clearly. Could you let us know what your organisation has done specifically at the community level in trying to empower the communities with the Sustainable Development Goals? Have you actually done anything specifically with regard to the SDGs?
Well, specifically, we haven't really touched on creating awareness about the Sustainable Development Goals, but we are really intervening in areas or in specific sectors that really address the some of the Sustainable Development Goals. For example, goal number 6, which is access to safe drinking water. We are involved in community supply water, and we are also involved in hygiene and sanitation, hygiene and sanitation. And these are some of the issues that we are working with rural communities to be able to address their needs. And so we try to highlight which of the Sustainable Development Goals we are addressing through these project themes. So we that is one of the way we are working with the rural communities to be able to address these Sustainable Development Goals, or maybe to contribute to the implementation and achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals. However, looking at the goals and trying to make them understand them first, it's what we are planning in this new year, in this 2016, to really get them involved. And we plan on printing t-shirts with the development goals, and we also plan on translating the development goals into some of the native languages so that the people can actually appropriate and understand it, especially aligning them with the different community priorities. So we are also doing mainstreaming peace and conflicts in the different activities that we are doing, because we believe that peace is something that is not just the absence of war, but should be something that comes from the inner mind. And once people can harness, can grow up with this culture of non-violence, they will be able to achieve more on the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we use the International Day of Peace to be able to reach out in terms of creating more awareness, engaging people in conflict matters, especially land tenure problems, which is very key in Cameroon. So we try to do that, and then we look at gender inequalities in terms of how community governance is concerned, because most of the women are cut out and their decisions are never considered in the overall decision making process of many communities, and we see it as a defect, we see it as a gap. And so we try to use all of this. We use the International Day of Peace to be able to bring engaged women, young girls, and tell them that they have a voice, they can make valuable contributions, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's so. What is the date of the International Peace Day, Tanda?
Come on again, Paul.
What is the date in the calendar year of International Peace Day?
The date is the 21st of December of September every year. That's the International Day of Peace.
It's just so that listeners know, because we have so many different recognized days throughout the year, but the 21st day of September is a good date because that is the date of the equinox, which is when the sun is right above the equator. So everywhere in the world gets equal day and equal night on the 21st of September.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul, with the
I just
highlight.
thought you would be interested in that because it means everybody, for one day only, 21st of March is the other day, but for 2 days only in the year, everybody has equal day and equal night. So it's really almost a metaphor for having everything equal, which is a very good day to pick, I would say.
Okay, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I would say the other thing that was interesting was that in many ways people involved in sustainable community development have been carrying out the sustainable development goals for the whole time that they've been involved in the community in any case. Um, the only difference now is that we actually have measurable goals. So before, for instance, you would go out and improve the water supply or improve the sanitation because that was the right thing to do. The difference now is that this is actually a measurable goal. It's quite useful to know, to tell the community that that they have been involved in sustainable development for some time, but the difference now is you have to be able to um, measure the SDG, and I think that is one of the issues we've faced so far. Is how do you actually measure the level of sustainable development in a community against each of the goals? And I think that's a challenge we've got to overcome. I mean, do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, that's true. I think it's a real challenge because even though these rural community members do not really understand what the international community is advancing on sustainable development goals, I think they have been doing a lot to address this, but without knowing which goal or whatever activity they do, it's addressing what specific goal. Coming back to us as a team in Cameroon, it's a real challenge to be able to match the different goals with the activities in the rural areas. However, I think that being a challenge, there could be ways for this to be addressed, and that could only be addressed through the multiplicity of capacity building that will equip the team with skills that are relevant and necessary to be able to measure some of these achievements by looking at key specific indicators. And I think if this is done, addressed, I think it will no longer be a challenge because we will be able to pick up key results that we can showcase.
Yeah, yeah, very, very interesting. Now you know that we are collecting, forming teams throughout the whole continent. Our aim is to get 54 country teams formed, and we're making good progress with that. And some of those teams have actually submitted country-specific objectives and action plans. What we've seen with those that have been submitted so far is the differences in the country priorities. I'd be interested to know what you think are the priority areas for Cameroon.
Yeah, I think that's really a good question and a good point to really talk about. As far as Cameroon is concerned, I think we have quite a good number of priorities, and these priorities are also are also aligned with the priorities in the different rural areas. And it will be interesting to note that these priorities come from one community of the goal priority, my specific communities in Cameroon. For example, goal number one, which is no hunger, no poverty, no hunger, which is goal number two. I think they are key, and especially in some communities in the north. Um, we also have priority number six, which is access to safe drinking water. The I think for Cameroon, we have, out of the 17 goals, we have like 14, 15 goals that are priority for Cameroon. And I think that if Sue Cyprian Joe is on his hangout, he could really elaborate on that, because he was in touch the with the ministry or Minipat, which is really in charge of prioritizing these goals for Cameroon, and he has much to really contribute with respect to this.
Thank you, Tanda. I know Sue's been trying to connect for the last half an hour. We'll see whether he's available or not. Sue, can you actually hear the conversation at all?
Yeah, I don't know. Have you been able to connect with Shu?
Uh, well, he's on the screen, but he obviously cannot make any comments at the moment. So I think we should wait until he actually gives us a sign that he can contribute. I see Francis has come back again. Francis, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Paul. Sorry for the bad network.
That's okay. Have you been listening? Have you managed to listen to any of the comments that Tanda has made over the last half an hour?
I listened in the beginning, and what I wanted to basically inquire was, of course, there are already national development plans, and I assume Cameroon is one of those countries that have adopted the national development plan. I wanted to know how young people in Cameroon have interpreted the national development plan vis-a-vis the SDGs, because the SDGs will be implemented within the national development framework, like the national development plan. I wanted to know from the Cameroon team how the national development plan is being translated to reflect the SDGs, and how young people are best positioning themselves, and how we as NIDE could provide support.
Yeah, thank you, Francis, for that brilliant question. I think over the past couple of weeks, we've been trying to develop the Cameroon team into a more coordinating body, and in terms of the national development plan, which of course, the seat of it is at the Ministry of Town Planning and regional development. I think we it is from there that we have taken the plans, and we are looking at how these plans, these national plans, really, can give us the leeway to be able to prioritize the development goals. Of course, the national development plan gives us those different areas of intervention that can, assist communities in their development specific plans. So, but now when we take the sustainable development goals, we have to now take the key activities which are listed, and then we match with some of these goals. I think that is specifically what we want to really do, which we haven't done yet, but we are in the process of doing that. But of course, we still solicit ideas from the from your team, and I am very sure that you guys have gone ahead and you have developed your own uh, country-specific action plan, which we have developed one, but we haven't finalized it yet. So in the meantime, we can get inputs from what you have done. We could, just see if we have gaps to fill from what you've already done.
Okay. One other question I wanted to ask is the political environment. Has it in a way been like hampering the process? For example, for Uganda currently, you learned that we've just had our elections, and for the past 2 weeks, social media had been switched off. We couldn't access Twitter, WhatsApp, and other platforms. And some of us youth activists have been looked at as partisan, and in a way, our movements and activities are being monitored. Is that situation also in Cameroon? And maybe the Uganda team would like to learn from you in case it has been there. Then how we could learn from you and also take such lessons to other teams.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's really a pity for the Ugandan, for the current situation in Uganda. In Cameroon, well, we have access to social media, and the political situation in Cameroon, I think, has publicly pronounced freedom of speech, and allows people to be able to express what they think. It's important for issues regarding development. In terms of seizure of social media, we haven't experienced that, but we have the general problem of network coverage, network connectivity, which is very poor in several areas. So that alone also hinders communication inter alia, different organizations supported and located in different corners of the Cameroon territory. So that is one challenge. The other challenge in terms of political dimension is the corrupt nature of most of our authorities, and so that alone, it's a hindrance to the will of the youths to fully engaged in the sustainable development goals. And I am very certain that I'm convinced that the fact that Cameroon is rated very high in terms of corruption, it's also a hindrance to garnering resources, or maybe to mobilizing resources that will, support the initiatives of youths nationwide in Cameroon to be able to, accomplish target 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 projects, target programs, and so on and so forth. So you realize that the political situation in Cameroon is not very favorable. Even though relative to Uganda, it cannot really be, um, cannot be the same.
Oh, all right, thank you. Maybe Paul has something to reflect on that, Paul?
Well, I was wanting to ask. Well, I can ask you both. Tanda can answer first. What resources can the youths in Cameroon harness in their community work? How if I am a young person in the community, how would you advise me to go about getting involved in community work?
Okay, I think it's 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 about it's just about sensitization, because my experience, haven't been brought up in a rural community and haven't experienced a lot of rural community life. I think what a young person in a community requires is just sensitization, and to tell them that every other part of the world was developed because people committed themselves to do great job for themselves. And and if I should take back 15 years ago, we used to organize community work where everybody comes out and we target one thing. Probably if it is to maintain a certain road that is motorable, everybody gets involved and we maintain the road. If it's to maintain a bridge, by probably getting trees or bamboos and putting them together and tying so that you can allow people to cross over to other parts, over a stream to other parts. Everybody comes out and that is done. And so I really believe that with rural resources and uh, a lot of awareness, the youths in rural communities can really be engaged. Of course, what we are trying to say is that with this kind of work nowadays, especially in some communities where if the transportation is challenged by the bad nature of roads, such resources can only help the youths in the cities, or youths that are into the civil society work, to be able to assess these communities and encourage the youth to be fully involved. Of course, they too will need, as a community youth, you will probably need certain skills such as leadership skills to be able to mobilize people and other resources that can help in moving forward development work. So and if we really need to empower the youths to be able to empower themselves, we will need to organize different small health projects, self-reliant projects like beekeeping. We will also need to look at fish growing or poultry, and because these are activities that are income generating. So we also believe that there are certain activities that will be done nowadays with which comes with resources, financial resources, and if we equip these youth with this kind of self-reliant skills and resources, I think that even on their own they can engage in community work, having understood that it is good for them and it is good for their generation, the generation that will come after them.
Yeah,
That's the contribution I can make on the point of Cameroon. I think Francis can give maybe his own contribution from the point of Uganda.
Maybe I wanted to, in line with especially difficulty in accessing internet. Very many young people are now having gadgets across the continent and in Cameroon without exception, to find out, maybe to share wisdom of how we can still engage those young people who are not able to access internet connectivity. Maybe within the plan where you are considering issues like uh, mini community discussions, or call them dialogues. As African Monitor, at some point we call them poverty hearing sessions, where you co-organize mini community meetings with younger people, and you have a platform to share some of these perspectives. At some point when you meet key decision makers, you can engage them around the issues that came out during these discussions with younger people in the rural areas where there isn't internet.
So what you are both saying is that it's possible to get involved in community work, just using your time and talents, and leadership is a key skill, but having money to sort of instigate this is not entirely necessary. That it's possible to do community development work with the resources you have at hand, rather than having to have access to a lot of money. Although I accept that obviously money is useful, it doesn't have to be the priority to do community development work.
That's very correct, Paul, and that's exactly what we are trying to say, because community work began even during the period, the era of our ancestors, and so we're just coming to inherit that. And with the constraints of globalization, we may probably need certain resources that are financially inclined, just because of the demands of today or of modern times. Like, for example, if we want to build a bridge, we will not longer have to build a bridge just with stones, but we will have to get some cement. Of course, stones and the sand will be resources that can be gathered, be mobilized around the communities. But cement will be something that has to be bought with money that is coming, that is or maybe synthesizes. It's actually manufactured. So it will be difficult for communities to access those resources. That's why we are saying that with very little, we can achieve more in rural communities. And if we just like Francis talked about, town hall or maybe village hall dialogue, when we do this dialogue, these youths will be very much engaging when they have small resources that are built into things that are sustainable, such as mushroom cultivation, maize cultivation, beekeeping, and fish growing. They know that when they grow this, they will be able to sell, get the revenue, and plow back in the business that becomes sustainable. So we don't need too much money to be able to engage youth in community development. It's a sustainable development. So that is what we are trying to say. But of course, the team that has to do capacity building, the team that has to do sensitization or maybe facilitate community dialogue, will have to come across challenges of enclavement or maybe bad roads and many other things. You see, so that's what we are trying to say. But of course, it's a right way to go. And now that the network of African youth in development, it's already building country teams. I think that it's a nice way to go to overcome some of these challenges, and because we can quickly, as a group or as a team, mobilize resources that can allow us access some of these communities and build up the spirit of sustainable development.
You started answering my next question, Tanda, which is it's a perfect link, because obviously we are in this as a continental group, with regional support and country teams trying to implement local rural development work. What are you, what do you think is the advantage of a youth network towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals?
Yeah, I think we really have the advantages are quite very many. Of course, the voice of this network will be louder, especially when it is coming from many organizations that are focused on the implementation of the sustainable development goals. And again, now that it's becoming very international, I think in terms of advocacy will help to push governments to fully engage in the implementation of sustainable development goals by looking at what capacity and what resources are available to be able to do this. For example, if it was just one organization that stands to shout and say, okay, we have to be engaged in sustainable development goal, I think the voice of that one organization cannot reach most of the decision makers. So I think that we really need more of advocacy. We need more advocacy work. We need more lobbying to be able to engage fully in the implementation of the sustainable development goals. And that's how I see these country teams, the network, coming and fully, resolving the issue of, the non-compliance of many governments towards the implementation of the sustainable development goals. I think with the networks, more will be achieved and greater impact will be created.
Yep, thank you very much, Tanda.
Fantastic.
Francis, do you have anything to add to that? I think Francis has left us. I see Ntui.
No,
Oh, hello. Yes. Do you have anything to add to that, Francis?
no. Actually, I was just emphasizing the issue of collective advocacy as part of a continental network. I think we bring strengthen national teams in advocating for spaces, especially where they have been identified. I think for us as part of the network on the continent, we're really able to, I think, to that on national level, and maybe where the national teams would find some kind of a difficulty. I think as network members, we are always open to provide support. I think that is one of the issues that this network is bringing at national teams.
Thank you, Francis. I see one of the other Cameroon team members is trying to join us. Ntui, can you hear us? Hello? Can you hear us?
His microphone is probably bad, as I can see on my computer here. Probably he's speaking and we are not getting him. Can you check that too, Paul?
Yeah, I'm not controlling his microphone. It shouldn't be muted.
Yes, it's muted. It's showing like it is muted. So
He must have done that. Ntui, if you can hear us, you will need to unmute your microphone. I think Shio is there as well, but again, he's having problems connecting today. So we'll give Untui another few seconds to see if he can connect and make a contribution. But if we don't get any more discussion out today, I think it's been a very useful 50 minutes anyway. I think we've covered a lot of the. Oh, hello.
Yeah, I think yes, Paul. I said yes. Probably we may have just one last thing to say before we end the hangout. Something like that.
Yes. Yes, please.
So yes. So I'm trying to say that the idea of continental network, national teams, it's something that is really good for the youth, and I think we can use this medium to be able to encourage youth-led organizations to be part of this network, and so that as a team we'll be able to make our voices heard. We can, I mean, change the face of things. We can push our governments, our respective governments, to understand that the challenges of sustainable development goals are in our hands, and that achieving them, it's for the better future of our generations to come. And the youth stand a better way to see to fully participate and engage more towards their achievement, towards their realization. So first of all, it's a good way to encourage all members of youth-led organizations to be part of this network, because it's already identified as a way that can really get communities working on their own as per the implementation of the sustainable development goals.
Thank you. Francis, do you want to make any concluding remarks?
Yes, right from where you are ending. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Godwin. Hi, Paul.
Hello?
Sorry, I wanted to just speak from where you ended. I wanted to finally inquire from you that as an activist, maybe if you had time to look at the National Development Plan, or maybe try to critically compare it with the SDG goals, and at this moment, I wanted to know if you've identified some gaps, especially at national level, that you think maybe the National Development Plan has not mentioned strongly, or you fear that the National Development Plan is not going to strengthen the realization of a particular goal, and maybe if there is need for advocacy around that gap, that for us as the international team advocacy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Francis, for the contribution and the advice. I think we have someone that is part of us at the level of the ministry, that is that is like the hub of national development plan. So, and we also have identified them to be key members of our national team, so that we can work together. Of course, at the level of identifying the priorities of Cameroon. In our next meeting, he already indicated that those priorities will be made available. And in terms of the National Development Plan document, I think we can request them to provide so that we can, if it's in soft copy, so that the respective members of the Cameroon team can look at it, and then we can work from there to see how we can, you know, align the plans with the Sustainable Development Goals priorities.
Yep. Yep. I've just realised we did have a question that actually addressed what you two have just answered from Action Youth Development about how you integrate the Sustainable Development Goals into existing programs, country programs, and I think Francis talked about national development plans. I assume that's what he meant by existing programs. And I think hopefully you two have answered that question. I don't know whether Ntui is there or not. We're about to close, Ntui. If you can say hello, please do. No, no, I don't think he's managing to connect. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Do you want to make
Yeah,
any more?
Paul, before you close, I think with respect to the question that came in, yeah, in Cameroon we do have many national programs, and we think that it will be easy for us to be able to align these priority sustainable development goals into those programs, because, for example, the national program for HIV, we could use that for one of those goals that talks on well-being, health and well-being. We also have the national program on family agriculture and something like that, which we think that we can always align them to the specific sustainable development goals. So we are going to look all of these things, including the national development plan, and we'll be able to, you know, specifically develop an action plan that reflects all of these things that we are talking about.
Hello.
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 Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Is this Ntui?
Yes. Yes. This is Ntui Oben.
You're welcome, Ntui.
Okay.
We were about to close the hangout, but if you would like to make any contribution, you would be very welcome. Whether it's about rural development or about issues implementing the SDGs in Cameroon, or about the strength of networks, or anything you'd like to sort of comment on about the priorities for Cameroon for the SDGs, please take this opportunity to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. First, I want to apologize for coming late because of the network problem in around my area and network difficulties, so I could not join you earlier. With respect to the issue of rural development and going to the rural communities, I think the first thing one of the first things we need to do, and we have discussed that in our Facebook chat group, is to identify those organizations, those groups that are willing to work with rural community. Can you get me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello. Yes.
Yeah, yes, is to identify those associations, those organizations, those NGOs that are willing to work with communities. That's the first thing. One of the first things we need to do, and to motivate and encourage them to carry out our projects in rural communities.
Thank you. And I see Frank Arnold's trying to join us as well. Can you hear us, Frank?
I'm sorry. It was a matter of connection. Connection was disturbing here.
Well, I'm very happy to see you here anyway, even though we're about to close the hangout. I'm sure there will be many opportunities to get involved in these hangouts. We can have them on a regular basis, and you will all have a chance to give your views about your country's plans and the issues faced and the other things we've discussed today. But thank you very much for making the effort to come on board. And I'd like to thank Tanda very much for being involved throughout this process over the last week, but also engaged in the working group to get the country objectives action plan template together
Yeah.
and the regional action plan. Thank you very much, Tanda. You've given so much more time over the last couple of weeks, and it's very much appreciated. And thank you to Francis as well for always being available and giving his time and very valuable contributions to any discussions about sustainable development in Africa. It's so much appreciated, Francis. But nevertheless, we've been talking for an hour now, so anybody listening will have had enough. Will have had enough of us talking for now, and I think it's a good idea not to make these discussions long anyway. On behalf of NAID and behalf of everybody who took part today, I'd like to thank you. Thanks very much for everybody who took part and everybody who listened today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Goodbye,
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, goodbye,
One last question.
everyone. Clay and the rest.